Let's talk tourism.
So, Nadine Pisani is the best-selling author of the Happier Than a Billionaire book series, as well as the recently updated Costa Rica Escape Manual. Originally from New Jersey, she's documented her transition to life in the tropics and has appeared on HGTV, CNN, and more. Nadine, let's talk tourism.
Let's do it.
How
I'm
you doing?
excited. I'm doing great. Let's talk all about Costa Rica.
All right. So, first, please tell me a little bit about how you and your husband got here.
Oh my gosh, that's just such a fun, great story. Very simply, we left the States when we were 37, and we were just tired of the life that we had. We were chiropractors, and we worked 60, 70 hours a week, and we said, why don't we just do what everybody says they're going to do? Just get up and leave and see what happens. And at that time, that was 2007.
Wow,
So that was before the first recession. Remember that crazy recession that happened? So that
that
was
was a good one.
before that. That was a real good one. So we made it, and we did, what everybody tells you not to do. And we bought a piece of property, and we were thinking, one day we'll build on it. Well, that never happened because the recession came, and then there's something about water rights, which I'm sure we'll talk about later,
Sure.
about the complications of that.
Yeah.
But we loved Costa Rica, and we were living in the mountains in Gracia. We loved everything about the country. And we didn't, even with that financial hit, we didn't want to leave. So I just started writing about these goofy adventures that we had. I'm from Jersey, my husband's from Brooklyn. So we were definitely, it was really different for us, and we didn't speak Spanish. And the book just took off.
Wow.
And I've been writing and talking about Costa Rica ever since.
Neat. So from crisis to crisis, right? I mean, isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
What are the
I would
best?
say just a straight line of crisis.
What are the best and most frustrating things about life here?
um, well, right now I'm not in Costa Rica.
Mhm.
I am now in North Carolina trying to get a water letter for my property in Costa Rica. So I think about this a lot actually, because I'm always juxtaposing where I was to now, to climate, to weather, to the friendliness of people. And I miss, like, my heart bleeds for a Costa Rica sunset. And I think anybody who's experienced them and see them, and if you haven't been to Costa Rica, it's what everybody waits for at around 6 o'clock in the evening. And what's great about Costa Rica, sun more or less comes up at 6 and goes down at 6, and it's just like that every day, which is really great for your circadian rhythm. And everybody gets together, and it's the most it's like a kaleidoscope of colors. And it could take a dreary day or a frustrating day, and you could instantly cheer up. I miss that horribly. Um, what I don't miss is some of the complications of the country, of some of the bureaucratic issues that are there, this water issue I'm dealing with. So um, I take the good and the bad
Right.
with Costa Rica. So, but I'm sure the sunset thing, you must hear that all the time, because
Sure.
that's just something. It's just spectacular.
And in the mornings, I'm looking out my window right now. The sun's amazing. Now, give me
Brick
the.
coffee in the morning,
Uh,
a cup of brick coffee.
is it not
That's it.
amazing once you've been down here how spoiled we are? Like even an average cup of coffee is great.
Yeah, I think if you, and I say this in the best possible way, if you go in with low expectations, and I mean that really in a positive way, um, the things like you're mentioning, a really good cup of coffee, the great mornings with the monkeys overhead, all of these type of things really just fill your life with such joy. Um, and if you go in with very high expectations, that perhaps it's going to be like Miami, and things are going to run a little more smoothly, I think
Right.
that's where you get tripped up a little bit, I think, for some people.
For the old timers, a lot of my friends have been here 30 and 40 years in terms of the expats. We kind of like that there's a little bit of friction in living here because it weeds out a lot of people who are maybe too high strung and can't quite hack it.
I'm a little bit more sympathetic to the people who are high strung and can't
Okay.
have it. I think they get raked a little bit over the coals when we talk about that. And I'm sure in the past I was guilty of that too. Um, Especially people who I think unfairly complain about some things.
Mm.
And silly things. Maybe they can't get the cheese they want or the wine they want. Those are just such silly, ridiculous things that I am sometimes I think I don't know if you were not grumpy where you're originally from. It's just an odd thing to
Of
be
course.
angry about cheese, right?
Right.
It's a funny thing. But I think that there are surprises that happen in Costa Rica for some people,
Hmm.
big and small. And what I've tried to do with my books, some are just funny narrative stories, especially when I built my house in Brasilito, the first, second book. And then I have this other one, the escape manuals, which is nuts and bolts about moving to Costa Rica from shipping to residency to just crime. And I think you just need information.
Right.
Back when I came, there wasn't any information. So maybe in a way that was good. I really didn't know what we were getting into. I actually thought it was going to be harder than it was.
Hmm.
Um, but if you just provide people with information, and even in the expat forums, and I'm sure you've seen them in the Facebook
Oof.
groups, sometimes they're just cruel.
Yeah.
so,
There.
so, everybody has this sense I know more than you, and
It's
I don't
very
think
odd.
anybody really, yeah, knows anything, and they could just like gang up on people for
Yeah.
asking a question, or one of my biggest pet peeves is, um, as you know, there's a lot of petty theft in Costa Rica.
For sure.
Just tons of it. You can't leave anything in your car. You can't leave anything on the beach. It's nonstop and it's relentless. So we all lived in a certain way, right? You live to always make sure you don't do any of those things. But you can slip up. You can leave something in your car by accident. You could do this, and it gets robbed right away. And the minute you say that in a forum, oh my gosh, it just people just go off on you so bad. You shouldn't leave it in there. You should
Right.
have
Right.
known
Right.
better.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little unfair. I do.
A lot of victim blaming. Yeah. I mean, those forums are toxic. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're rough, especially on me. They're especially rough on me.
there's a
I
lot of
I, I
trolls
don't I
in
don't
there.
know why. I stay out of them because of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Either I'm too positive about Costa Rica or I'm too negative about Costa Rica. There's really no middle way for
Well,
those
you
groups.
know what they say: free advice is worth what you pay. What do you
Yeah.
what do you miss the most about the U.S. and what do you not miss at all?
The U.S. Um, what I like about it is the convenience. I think if anybody's had car problems in Costa Rica,
Oof.
I always think that's the first snafu
Yeah.
most people are going to run into.
Yep. That's true.
Even when even when you bought a used car and it's a Mitsubishi and there's parts in the country and you did everything right, sometimes there's difficulty finding a good mechanic. And then there might be difficulty in finding the part, and it could take weeks and months.
Yeah.
And then one of the funniest things that happen, well, not funny if it happens to somebody, but if you go to the wrong mechanic and let's just say they do some things to your car, take it apart practically, and then when you come back, they might say things like, "Well, you owe me $2,000," and they keep your car hostage. I've known a few people that's happened to.
Right.
And my husband, it's hilarious. We were at a car mechanic for something else, I think our scooter, and a gringo walked in. And he goes, "So you want my car? So you're gonna keep my car?" And he had a crowbar, and he bashed out every window in his own car. And I didn't even have to ask why he did that. I know because the guy was keeping his car. So I think like crazy. I tell people that story, and only somebody from Costa Rica just nods their head and goes, "Yeah, I've heard that before. It happens." I like that that doesn't happen here. Some
Right.
convenience of things like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think, but on the flip side, um, it's even I'm living in the woods now, where I couldn't buy anything if I wanted to. But the engine of the America is materialism.
Hmm.
And it's when you when you're in Costa Rica, you just can't, because I mean, you could do Amazon, cross your fingers, you're going to get that package.
And pay double.
So you cut and pay double. So you learn not to have a life of, like, shopping isn't a hobby in Costa Rica. It just can't be. It's unless maybe San Jose by the malls, but it's really not. I don't think an engine that drives expats. That's not it. So I don't really like that here, falling back into that, or the desire for things as
Yeah.
much. You
Yeah.
couldn't desire it in Costa Rica because you just couldn't get it.
Hmm. Well, knowing so you went from Grecia, which is the mountains, to the beach.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah,
made
I
you,
had
what made
it
that
was the
decision, where did
piece
that
of
decision come from?
property.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. So we go to Gracie. We bought the property first. We moved to Gracia because we're closer to San Jose to get a car. Because Gracia, if anybody knows, Gracia is like tons of car lots when you drive through Gracia. So a lot of
Hmm.
people will buy their car from Gracie. We thought we'd get the car, especially if you want to apply for residency. We'll be near San Jose. We'll be near immigration. We'll spend 6 months here. And we loved it so much. We lived high up on the mountain. I think we're around 4,000 feet up. So perfect weather all year round. A lot of 75-degree days. We lived, we backed up to a national forest. So I had kinkajous in my yard and all these really beautiful birds. But eventually, after 3, 4 years, we had to get to the beach to take care of this property that we had. So I like that I had that experience, because truly, Central Valley is very much different
Oh
than
yeah.
living at the beach. And maybe even more so now because of, uh, I mean, everything got really popular. The last 3 years is just nuts what's happened to the
Yeah.
beaches and the growth. So I think it's a nice. It's sometimes I feel like it's two different countries, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and it's probably more than two when you start talking about the different zones, the different regions,
Sure.
and the climates are so different. It attracts very different people. Knowing what you know now, is there anything you would have done differently?
Oh, it's so hard to say. I mean, it's so simple to say when you look at the mistakes you made, the property, and of course, like, I wish that was different. But you know, what happened with that is, I talked about it. When you have a huge failure in your life, or a financial loss, you tend not to want to really talk about it with people because it's hard, it's embarrassing. But the water letter issue was important to talk about, because back then, and let me just do a quick thing about it so
Sure.
the
Yeah.
people who are watching understands. Back in 2007, 2006, whenever we bought this property, there were no rights in regards to water. You got the water from the ground, you got the water from a river. There wasn't much to be said about it. That around 2007, 2008, the law changed, and Costa Rica said, we own the water. So now, for you to get legal water, you have to jump through some hoops. Taxes, inspections, things. It has to become an ASADA, like your local water company in a sense, but the government owns it. And the development that we bought the property in, that developer left. Now, there was wells there was water there. We had a line to our lot with water. That's what people don't understand. It doesn't mean you don't have water. It's legal water.
Right.
Without the legal water, I couldn't get a permit to build.
Right.
And you weren't grandfathered in. It was like you couldn't have seen it coming. And that's a
Yeah.
lot of things that about Costa Rica, the not seeing it coming. Like,
Yep.
and the unfairness of it.
Hmm.
So the funny thing about it is where I did end up building my house in a lot in a development called Mar Vista. It was literally probably 20 feet from my lot, the dividing line, from legal water to not legal water, a difference of that few feet. So I ended up being in a great development. Right away, I asked, you have legal water? He gave me the paper right away. Yes, legal water. And now you can build, and now you can sell, right? Now you can sell because now everybody knows this has to have legal water um, to sell. Well, I guess people could buy a place without legal water, but then you're rolling the dice
Mhm.
whether you can sell it. So I wish that didn't happen in some sense, but then that's what kind of took off my writing because all of a sudden I'm the one who is really talking about all my challenges there,
Right.
right? The good, the bad, and it kind of led to my whole career. So, tricky question, right? I
Yeah,
don't know
right.
where I would have been if that would have, I don't know if I would have had the books and the success of that. I'm not sure.
Interesting. Um, what's changed the most about Costa Rica since you arrived?
It's, my husband and I talk a lot about this, and I'm sure because I had all the old timer friends too who lived there 30 years and all that. Should have seen it when, right? That's what they say. Should have seen it when. Should have seen it 20 years ago. And I started to say that. Should have seen it when. Because the joy of what we love doing was, I mean, we would get on our scooter and we would go to, some of the poshest places a day passed, or they let you in if you bought lunch and you could swim in their pools. And we were doing all these fun things. And I mean, gosh, Guanacaste, Brasilito, that was a dirt road when I came. The last Catalinas project and Sugar Beach, that was one of the worst roads in the entire country. So if you wanted to go to Sugar Beach, you had to really like rough it to get there.
Mhm.
I miss that. I, I really do. I'm shocked. The growth, and I'm sure you could pontificate on it as well. The growth is out of your mind growth at the beach. It's shocking how during the pandemic people bought things sight unseen.
Mhm.
How a place that rented for $700 is renting for $3,000 a month now. It's something out of like a sci-fi movie. Like it happens so quick. And I'm not sure how the market is going to sustain that. I mean, markets go up and markets go down, right? So we'll see that type of if that growth is sustainable. And another thing too is growth doesn't necessarily equate to infrastructure growth. I'm sure you've seen that, right?
Well,
It's like you can
starting
get
with
the
the water.
condos. It's starting with the water and starting with the water pipes. And especially Guanacaste, that's the northwest part of Costa Rica, is the driest part in the dry season. So water is, that's all you talk about is water, especially in the dry season. And it's rationed in Tamarindo on and off days, on and off. So you have to have a tank. So um, you think a lot about that. And I'm hoping that maybe the infrastructure will come and maybe fix some of these problems. But so you live in Costa Rica a while, I've seen hotels and other big people with a lot of money make things happen, make the roads, make the changes. And sometimes I'm thinking, well, maybe they're just waiting, you know, for the Hyatt or a big conglomerate to come in and pay for the things that perhaps the government doesn't want to.
Mhm. So obviously Costa Rica has changed pretty massively, and maybe some of that was accelerated with the pandemic and so much printing of so much cash. But what's changed the most about you since you got here?
Oh, I'm just like 1,000 times kinder. Move to a place where you don't know the language and you are relying on the kindness of strangers. I mean, isn't that talk about walking somebody else's shoes, right? Because in the States, you could talk all about immigration and people coming in or whatever. And if you've never experienced what that's like to just be broken down on the side of the road and you just don't even know enough of the language to like try to get across what you need, boy, that changed me. I mean, I am not the same person. I mean, it really just makes you friendlier and kinder, softer. Costa Rica made me hard in places I needed to get tough, and it made me softer in places I needed to soften up. And I think living abroad's great, right? Like it's the view of the world,
Yeah.
It doesn't revolve around you. It doesn't revolve around your customs or your tastes or your likes. Like you need to adapt rather, and adopt to the country that you're in. And easier said than done. And I think, and it just takes perseverance and patience. And I mean, and how about this? Just getting out of your way, really, is what it takes.
What would you like to see change in Costa Rica, and what do you hope never changes?
Oh, geez. Um, I think everybody thinks about the environment, right? And the destruction of the environment, and to keep the space for, I mean, what's Costa Rica has like 6% of the world's biodiversity. And this country's amazing. It was like before it was separated, it was squished, all the land mass is squished, and it pushed Costa Rica in the middle up. So Costa Rica has this really interesting topography where you can be at a volcano on the top of a volcano in the morning and at the beach in the afternoon. It's very rare that you can do that in countries. So the topography makes it so special for certain species to survive. Why we all loved Costa Rica is because of that. Scarlet macaws. Like, you travel throughout Costa Rica, and that's what the southern zone has, and I'm always jealous of that, is like the plethora of scarlet macaw. I mean, when you sit on the beach and a scarlet macaw flies overhead or eats the almonds and drops them on your head, I mean, that is a life-changing moment. The turtles in Astanel, having, 100,000 turtles come to the shore, it's a life changer. I mean, it'll make you cry. It's so beautiful. I think everybody who loves Costa Rica wants that to stay, but it's complicated, right? Because I say that, but then again, I built a house.
Sure.
I tried to be sustainable. I kept the trees and I replanted things, but you know, you always got to be careful when you're pointing the finger, right? When you're the one who came. So a balance, and hopefully the government will keep some sort of balance. But I don't know if anybody thinks about Costa Rica without thinking about the monkeys and the wildlife. It's such a special place.
Yeah, I heard somebody tell a joke once that the environmentalist is the person whose house just got finished.
That's so true.
You know what I
I
mean?
try, you know, I you gotta just be careful. You can get on a soapbox, right? And I'm sure
It's
I've done it.
easy.
And you could
It's
just,
easy.
it's easy to say and point,
Yeah.
and then you just got to look at yourself and your behaviors. And you can just hope that there's smart people that are going to try to do the right things and keep the country for the Ticos, not the expats. It's the Ticos country, and for them to drive it and keep it the way they want to keep it.
Do you think tourism complements or competes with real
Mm.
estate and residential life?
Oh, brother, boy, where I built my house in Brasilito, Brasilito was Tamarindo got big years ago, so people who lived Tamarindo moved further away, like Brasilito, Flamingo, and now that might as well be Tamarindo. It's that busy. And to live in a tourist town, that was my first time I ever lived in Gracia surely wasn't a tourist town,
Right.
but to live at the beach and there's some energy to it and excitement to it, right? I loved how people would come and woohoo and just like, be so excited and just love the country so much. But you can't deny it carries some complicating factors with it, with the nefarious part of travel and the unfortunate things that happen in tourist towns because of expats, gringos, tourists with money to burn, money to spend, and money to spend on bad things. So it's almost like a constant juggling, right? Of of tourism, of people, of infrastructure, of police presence. I think most tourist towns. I think it's fair to say that we would like more police presence in these towns to help mitigate some of this nefarious issues that are going on. And Costa Rica really doesn't have the tax dollars for a very substantial and strong police force. And hopefully that changes um, for everybody.
And here's one of the ironies, right? One of the things that people like about Costa Rica is the government is not particularly heavy handed. And
Yes.
part of that is heavy handed regarding tax. We have a lot of tax, but the collection thereof is, let's just say, spotty, right? And in
Yeah.
recent years, particularly in the residential real estate boom in tourist areas, they probably left a lot of tax dollars on the table. I suspect that is about to change. Now,
I think it has to change. You're right. I think this growth and the need for things, and like right now, where I used to live in Brazilito, they're putting this bridge in, much needed bridge. Most of these bridges in, especially in beach towns, are one-way bridge. The CETA, like you yield and you let somebody come, and it's not sustainable anymore. You need a two-way bridge for some of these areas. The traffic is just so far backed up; it's unbelievable. And there's complications now with the bridge because there's the alternate route. There's complications that they made. They don't have enough signage to let people know, don't go through here, or the bridge is out, or things like that. So you're right. I think it just has to change. I don't think there's ways to keep going forward with it
yeah, so
like the
this
way
is
it
the
is.
irony, right? Is everyone squeals about taxes, but then we complain when there aren't enough police, or there's not enough water infrastructure, or the roads need updating. I think that's
And I have to
probably,
hand,
yeah,
if you don't mind me interrupting,
go ahead.
you got to hand it to Costa Ricans because when they're angry about something,
Oh,
they're going to shut down the whole country
yeah,
and they shut down the highways. I mean,
yeah,
I've been through so many of them over the years. It's incredible to see, right?
yeah,
Because in America, we'll do things and there's always you'll see somebody shutting down highways, groups doing it to bring attention to something. But could you imagine if all of America, like we got up and shut down the entire country? And when Ticos do that, it is like there's no choice but to listen to them.
right.
And I think, and probably, have you ever had it shut down and you try to go a back way? We tried to do that once, and right when we're about to go the back way, they drag a log in the road.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh my gosh, we're never going to get to Osa Peninsula, like, of all days. So I think that that's coming. I really think it's coming. I think the Ticos, the crime has risen, right? Crime that we never experienced before is happening in Costa Rica to some extent. I mean, I don't think it stops you from going to Costa Rica, but I think the Costa Ricans are like, I think we need a better police force. I think tax dollars should be spent to securing these towns and having a little bit of a judicial system, right?
yeah. I mean, again, this is the irony. Everyone appreciates that Costa Rica has been laissez-faire until all of a sudden it's no longer working. And in some places, it's just not.
Sure. And I think I want to be optimistic about it. I
Oh,
think,
I am. I mean, this is an optimistic country,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and things will hopefully change, and just like I'm still hoping for the water letter, and we build our next house there, and it'll work out, and I'm still hoping it works out.
Where's your happy place in Costa Rica? Do you have an off the radar secret spot that you like to escape to?
Oh my gosh, so many that I've written about, and then I get nasty emails saying stop writing about
Yeah, what did you
all the
do?
nice places.
Don't tell people.
Yeah, yeah, I'm giving them all out. Sugar Beach was one of them, and that
Right.
now is not anymore. That's just now. I think that's a retreat that is hard to even get on the beaches, which is shocking, because beaches are public in Costa Rica, and you always have some sort of resort blocking some, and it creates, such discord in the community. Um, Gracia is always my first love. I mean, living in Gracia, the highlights were just every Thursday. I remember we used to always go to Poa's volcano. Everyone to
Nice.
Poa's. It's just incredible. On the scooter, riding up there, getting a cup of coffee at a Mirador, and at that time you didn't need the reservation, a reservation for like a ticket to go to the Poa's. You could just go any time. And and if you drive to La Paz Waterfall Gardens, Peach Lodge, I think they were once on like The Bachelor, the beautiful hotel that
Right.
got really banged up in the the bad earthquake of 2000, maybe nine.
Yeah, it's
There
completely
was
covered, covered in
there
dirt.
was a 6.2 that really did a number on Poez in there. But if you take that road to Peace Lodge, it looks like Switzerland. The part of the country that says, the Costa Rica's or the like Switzerland of Central America. And it's just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. So I think, for as much as I love the beach, and the beach is an easy sell. I mean, come
Sure.
on, ocean, the palm trees. For as much as that makes me so darn happy to see that, there's something great about a 75-degree day up in the mountains, surrounded by green. I think maybe to when I compare them, the North Guanacasta's dry in the dry season, as opposed to Southern Pacific, which their dry season is more green. You still have green, but it can look like a desert in the dry season
Hmm.
in Guanacasta. So I think when April comes and it was the height of the dry season, everything's brown, my mind would just go back to Gracia.
Sure. What's your one big tip for anybody that's thinking about moving to Costa Rica?
Oh boy, I don't know. Oh gosh, I've had so many over the years. You know, um, believe what you see. That was once. Believe what you see. Have a little bit of lower expectations we talked about in terms of maybe the food or how much you think things are going to be, because tourism is always more expensive. You'll always be surprised with the bill of the restaurant because they tack in the tax and they added 13%. So what, like 23% is tacked onto your bill. So just be prepared for that. Um, oh gosh, it's just we all have so many opinions, us expats, right? And
Right.
people live. We're always telling people how to do it. But I think you just have to find out what you want to do, right? When I had my house, uh, I also rented it out as an Airbnb and I lived upstairs. And the people who came to stay with me had read my book. So usually it was to talk to me and learn about Costa Rica. And I always wanted to know, what's the one thing you really want to do? You know, do you want to see the waterfall, or do you want to do the sunset cruise, or you want to go on a river tour to see crocodiles and white-faced monkeys? I think that's what you and your group, who you're coming down with your whole family or a group of friends, just find that one thing that you really want to do and make sure you do that, because there is no bigger regret than leaving Costa Rica and not getting to see the thing that you wanted to see.
Last question. When somebody asks you, what does Pura Vida mean? What does that mean to you?
Oh, oh my gosh. I call it the Pura Vida ingredients. I kind of extrapolate on that. It's like combination of, you know, it's so important. We in certain areas of the world and in certain parts of the country, you experience nature deficit disorder, which is, you're not outside enough and you're not seeing nature enough. And we need it in our DNA. We need to experience green and trees and fresh air, and it's important to our health and well-being. And there's something called hedonic adaptation, and it's where, when you get a new car, it's exciting, but then you don't care anymore in 2 weeks. It's like your eyes can see things and then dismiss them within a couple weeks, but they don't matter anymore. It's like having bars on your windows, right? First they bother you in Costa Rica, and then you don't even see them. But what's fascinating is you don't get that with a view, right? You love it every time, for the most part. It's special. So Pura Vida to me is a bunch of ingredients of a friendly demeanor, an appreciation for a gorgeous view, um, being softer and kinder to the people around you. Um, Man, it just brings a smile to my face, because it changed me so much. The Costa Rica changed me. The Ticos changed me. How I see life, how I want to live my life. So to me, it's a cocktail. It's a cocktail of happiness, um, of well-being, So I really urge people. It's why, and people come to Costa Rica and like lunatics, we all fall in love, right? And the next thing you know, we're moving there. There's a reason people are doing that,
Sure.
is because it affects some of us more than others. I know when I came, there was huge deficits happening with me. I was sad. I was overworked. Um, and I think sometimes you think, when am I going to do it? Right? Like, when am I going to make this big change? Am I going to wait till I'm retired? 62, 63, 64? I'm hopefully, cross my fingers, I'm healthy enough to do it. So Pura Vida kind of means also that excitement, of picking up and doing something that everybody says they're going to do, but you're the one who did it, and listening to all your friends that tell you you're crazy for doing it. And maybe even crazier for start a business in Costa Rica. That's a whole other podcast, right? Like the weeds of that are significant. So, we're all these bunch of lunatics doing these things and making this new life. And I think it all fits in this. It's like a cocktail. You know those fluorescent cocktails, like the blue ones. Like in my mind, that's how I see Pura Vida. This beautiful non-alcoholic. Okay, let me just preface that non-alcoholic blue beautiful. You know what? Know what it's more like now that I think about it. Remember when we were kids and the icy things you had in the plastic from the
Sure.
freezer,
Yeah.
and you pop them up, and the blue ones were radiant blue. I don't know what dye was in there, but that's how I see it. This oversaturated, beautiful country that gives a lot if you're willing to accept it.
I think that is a wonderful explanation. Nadine, it's been a blast talking to you. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Let's
it's
do it
great.
again.
It's great. Oh, for sure. I'm always here.
Awesome.
Let's talk tourism.